Today we take a look at what's changed in the latest Honda City sedan, the Yamaha FZX, and we check out the new Harley-Davidson Street Glide Special. Hello and welcome to Overdrive. I'm Sunny Dutt. The 2023 updated Honda City has received mixed responses. We are here to dig deeper to find out whether this is capable of tackling new age competition.
The fifth generation Honda City was the first car that we reviewed during the pandemic. Back then, in June 2020, Honda made sure that each and every one of the test cars were disinfected inside and out before handing it over to the journalists. Back then, the aroma of a new car was replaced with the unnerving smell of sanitizers. It's been 3 years since. The pandemic has been declared an endemic. You and I may not be very serious about these kind of safety protocols anymore, but Honda, they have actually ended up upping their safety standards for the new city. How typically Japanese. As a part of an early midlife makeover, the entire Honda City lineup is now equipped with ADAS functionality, which in 2022 was the preserve of the Honda City Hybrid. The lineup itself has shrunk. The iD-Tech diesel, which was once the magic bullet for Honda India, has now been axed in the wake of the most stringent BS6 Phase 2 norms. Making that engine compliant for these more stringent norms just doesn't make financial sense anymore. Now the hybrid, it does aim to overshadow that diesel or the void left by the diesel in some way. To that effect, they've also introduced the hybrid now in the lower V trim level to make it a lot more accessible than before. Have they done enough though? At least in terms of the design, I think they could have done more. Not everyone wants radical looking cars. There are many who still appreciate an elegant face, many who still appreciate good proportions. And from that point of view, the Honda City continues to be a very good looking car. It's also got excellent proportions. It doesn't look disproportionately tall like some of its European competition. And it's still the longest car in the segment. The new one can be identified with its new front bumper comprising of a sleeker fog lamp housing and a pleat that connects this housing to the lower part of the grille, and there's also a carbon fiber look-alike trimming on the bumper which adds a sporty touch. A closer look reveals a new mesh pattern for the upper grille as well. A bootlit spoiler is now a standard fit on the range topper trims, and the rear bumper gets a garnish that is similar to the front. The alloy wheels also see new designs, both in the 16-inch and the mid-level 15-inch sizes. The tyre sizes, however, remain unchanged, though I think they should have moved to a 195 section at least for the top-end variants. The cabin design is virtually unchanged, meaning you continue to get a cabin or a layout that looks and feels premium than most of its competition. The standard petrol trims use forward inlays, while the hybrid chooses a sportier carbon fiber look. Other enhancements to the cabin include a new frameless rear-view mirror, wireless connectivity for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and a complementing wireless charging pad too, which is fixed in the tunnel console of the hybrid. At the same time, in the petrol variant, it is detachable and powered via the conventional 12-volt socket. Had the cable been longer, it could have been usable in the rear seat as well. The brochure will tell you that the length of this Honda City has increased by 34 millimeters. That's quite a big number. But that increase in length is purely coming from the redesigned bumpers front and rear. There's no change to the cabin space as such. Of course, the cabin space was never a complaint with the current generation Honda City. I think the knee room, the leg space, everything is quite nice. With the seat set to my preference, just look at the kind of room that I have. I like these two reading lamps here. I like the kind of space that I get. I like the kind of visibility that I get outside of the windows. So overall, I'm pretty happy. The front seats are large and supportive as before, but it was high time Honda introduced ventilated seats, especially given the fact that it is such a nice driver's car too. After driving all these turbocharged sedans for the last year, it's good. It's a good feeling to get back into a car that has a naturally aspirated engine. We've always loved that 1.5 litre from Honda, right? It's like that iconic engine. A 1.5 litre petrol with a Honda City just works. There's some charm to it. And that remains unchanged even with the facelift because the powertrains haven't changed at all. A rev-happy engine with a slick gearbox and a light clutch will put a smile on the faces of most petrol heads. And the good news is that this engine complies with all the stringent BS6 Phase 2 norms without any drop in power or torque.
Even the hybrid system, it remains unchanged, the tuning remains unchanged. On the brochure, you might notice a slightly higher claimed fuel economy figure, but that's purely to do with a slight bit of a change in the testing parameters for the ARAI or for the testing agencies. It's nothing to do with the tuning of the powertrain. It continues to work with an EV only or a series hybrid or a parallel hybrid system. And it is, I think, the more responsible powertrain to go for, or the powertrain to go for if you really need that long distance range. If you purely are looking for driving fun, despite the electrical assistance and everything, I think the 1.5 petrol is still what I would choose.
The big news for this update, however, is the inclusion of Honda's sensing ADAS functions in the petrol variants too. So features like lane keep assist, road departure mitigation, and adaptive cruise control, which from 2022 were only available on the hybrid variant, are now available on all but the base SV variant of the 2023 city lineup. The hybrid itself gets a new feature called low speed follow, which is essentially similar to the adaptive cruise control but even works between speeds of 0 to 30 km an hour.
So what do you think about the new Honda City and its upgrades and its new pricing? Well, I quite like the fact that Honda has introduced this new S variant so that the pricing remains accessible, the entry point remains accessible for anyone who wants to choose a mid-size sedan over the crossovers. The second thing that I like is the introduction of the V trim with the hybrid. As of last year, the hybrid was still exclusive to the top-end trim, which meant that it was still out of the reach for a lot of people. But the V trim now, with that relatively more accessible price point, is a very good thing.
The Honda City's updates may seem minimal on the face of it, but the inclusion of better safety features like the ADAS tech on most of the trims and also the introduction of the hybrid powertrain on a mid-level trim makes the new City a better deal than before. The new age competition, however, will certainly give the City a tough time. But the fact remains that it is one of the safest, roomiest, and most fuel-efficient mid-size sedans that you can buy in the segment right now.
Well, the updated Honda City, as always, goes up against the likes of the Skoda Slavia, the Volkswagen Virtus, the Hyundai Verna, and also the very reliable Maruti Suzuki Ciaz. We'll, of course, bring you a comparison test pretty soon. Until then, we'll take a very quick break here on the show. But coming up on the other side, we tell you all about the updated Yamaha FZX.
At India's biggest summit on gender parity, India's